Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod Science Classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to discuss current affairs of 9th October 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 7 topics which are very much relevant to our UPSC point of view. So let's get started with our discussion and let us have a look over the topics that we are going to discuss in this lecture. So first topic it is about India-China patrols face off in Tawang. So what happened here? What happened here means already we know that India is sharing boundary with China at 3 areas, especially at western sector, at central sector and eastern sector we are having disputes. So in western sector at LAC region, so in this LAC region we are seeing standoff since May-April 2020 onwards. Only in some areas there is complete disengagement, but still we need to go for further talks. Already we are going for multiple level of talks, but disengagement is not at all complete at this LAC. And one incident happened here in eastern sector, especially in this Tawang region. About 200 PLA, okay, People's Liberation Army of China, they entered into our India and they tried to destroy our bunkers in that Tawang region. And Indian army they found out and they were captured and they kept, okay, and they detained for a few hours after the talks and they released. So this is the thing which mainly happened across Indo-China border. So this article is important from our international relations point of view. And next topic is about 31 selected for lateral entry post. So especially for beginners, they need to understand what is this lateral entry, and you need to know what are advantages and what are the challenges. So because of this, I selected this article for discussion, and this will be important from our polity point of view. And we are going to see how this lateral entry mainly done, what is the process as well. And next one is prompt action proved IAF's combat readiness. So here this is October 8th we are celebrated. Yesterday we celebrated 89th Indian Air Force Day. So on this day our Air Force mainly showcased about its combat readiness, and it also showcased about even in the western sector across this LAC region. So ongoing issues, okay, based on that ongoing issues, how our Indian Air Force is ready, and even across Indo-Pakistan border issues as well. So Indian Air Force participate in this Balkot air strikes. So those things which mainly discussed, and here we need to focus on what is this Air Force and some important facts regarding this Air Force Day that will be important from our security, which mainly comes under our GS paper 3. And next topic is about Supreme Court flags consequences of growing digital divide. So this article mainly talking about this digital divide. Already we discussed this topic number of times, and now we are going to see what Supreme Court it is saying about this digital divide. So why Supreme Court came up with discussion regarding this digital divide. So we are going to discuss that. That will be important from our education point of view. And next topic about it is Giloy. So Giloy is safe to use, says Ayush Ministry. So this article it is about one important medicinal herb, that is Giloy. So this will be important from our health point of view. And next one it is about Nobel Peace Prize. And next topic is about public health system. So this will be important from our health. So in this article we are mainly focusing on community medicine, how it plays an important role especially in this COVID-19 times. So these are the important topics we are going to discuss now. Now let us try to see first topic. First topic says that India-China patrols face off in Tawang. So I explained you about background regarding this. So India and China, they are sharing boundaries and they are having disputes in western sector, central sector and even eastern sector. Okay, across this LAC in western sector we are seeing there is a dispute, and since May 2020 onwards standoff that is seen from the both the sides, and even that led to this Galwan Valley incident. So in this Galwan Valley incident about 20 Indian soldiers they lost their life. So again the similar type of event now we saw in this eastern sector as well, and Chinese they mainly tried to occupy this Tawang region. So about 200 soldiers they entered, okay, they entered into this Tawang region and they tried to destroy Indian bunkers at that area. So unfortunately here what happened, here Indian soldiers mainly saw that incident and they reached that place and they mainly detained those people who entered into Indian border. And after high level meetings between India and China, and those people mainly left, and India gave a warning that this type of incident should not happen once again like that. So now let us try to see this topic. So some Chinese soldiers of large patrol, they were detained for a few hours by Indian army after a minor phase off near Yangtze in Tawang sector of Arunachal Pradesh. So especially in this Yangtze in Tawang sector of Arunachal Pradesh, so there was a minor face off. So in this minor face off, about 200 soldiers of Chinese, they were detained for few hours. So this is context. And if you see some details, it mainly says that some Chinese soldiers, they were detained for few hours and let off. That means they left after the issue was resolved on the ground level based on the protocols. And the phase off occurred because of differing areas of perception due to demarcated boundary. For example, let us take India says that this is the boundary, this is India's perception, but Chinese says that it is not the boundary, it is the boundary. So because of this area which mainly comes under disputed area between India and China. So because of this, what happened, because of this misperceptions or different perceptions due to demarcated boundary, and as both the sides they undertook patrolling activities up to their line of perception. So because of this type of events normally happens, and the phase off occurred as patrols of both sides they came face to face, which lasted for few hours and they resolved by local commanders. So if this issue which is not resolved means it might leads to another Galwan Valley incident in this Tawang region. And next one is the latest phase off which mainly occurred as two sides they set to hold 13th Corps commander talks of disengagement and de-escalation along this line of actual control in eastern Ladakh. So in this line of actual control, we are going to have this next levels of Corps commander level meeting. But even though if we went for different rounds of this meetings, so there is no complete disengagement that is seen across this LAC region. So this is one cause of concern. So this is about this topic. And now let us try to see some facts regarding this eastern sector. So especially in eastern sector, we are sharing boundary with China. It is about 1140 kilometers. Especially only at eastern sector, we are sharing boundary that is about 1140 kilometers with China. And the boundary line between China and India at this eastern sector, so name of that line is McMahon line. Okay, McMahon line. So this is the line which mainly it is one of the demarcation between India and China, especially at this eastern sector. Right? If you see here, this line which is not accepted by China. China says that this line is illegal. So actually this line came into existence since in this Simla Accord. So during this Simla Accord of 1914, so this line which came into existence, but this line China says that it is illegal, it is not accepting this. So this is about this eastern sector. And now let us try to see the map of territorial dispute between India and China. So here this part we are having dispute, right? So here we have this LAC, line of actual control. So this red colored part which is mainly claimed by China, and other disputed areas here, okay, in these areas. And next one is in eastern sector. So this area, entire Arunachal Pradesh, which is mainly claimed by China, it is McMahon line. And here this part which is mainly the area which ceded by the Pakistan to China. Okay, so this is about a map as well. And now let us try to see next article. Title says 31 selected for lateral entry post. So here we need to focus on what is this lateral entry. So if you're talking about topmost post like IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS, so there is one body, that is Union Public Service Commission. So this Union Public Service Commission is a recruitment body which mainly conducts examination for recruiting of high level post in India. Right? So here what is the meaning of this lateral entry? Rather than going for examination directly, UPSC will recruit the people. So this is called as, in short and in normal lay terms, it is a lateral entry. So now let us try to see context. So center recommended 31 candidates from private sector and even public sector undertakes, that is PSUs. From private and as well as from PSUs, 31 people they are recommended by center and they will be appointed as senior and as well as mid-level positions in various ministries under lateral entry program. And under this lateral entry program, employment will be given on contract basis. On contract basis, 31 candidates they were recommended, especially from private sector and even public sector undertakings, and these people will be appointed as senior and as well as mid-level positions in various union ministries, and this mainly done under lateral entry program. So now let us try to see some important details. If you see details, it mainly says that the most number of such appointments, 6, they are mainly for Ministry of Finance. For Ministry of Finance itself, out of 31, 6 posts are allocated. And one more important thing here is, so if you are going for conducting of exams and if you are going for recruiting through exams, so there will be the reservation policy will be applied. But here in this lateral entry, reservation or caste based quotas do not apply for these recruitments. So this is the one important thing. And as per norms, the post of joint secretary, director and deputy secretary, they are mainly filled by officers who are belonging to this all India services, group A services, for example IAS, IPS, IRS. And if you're talking about process, how government is going for recruiting through this lateral entry scheme. So first of all, in the recent press statement which is given by Department of Personnel and Training, so this Department of Personnel and Training gave a press statement. It mainly said that, so Department of Personnel and Training which requested UPSC, Union Public Service Commission, to select suitable persons to join government at a level of joint secretary, director or deputy secretary in various ministries or departments of government. So here DOPT mainly requested UPSC to select the suitable candidates which mainly suit for joint secretary, director, deputy secretary of various ministries and departments. And later on, what this UPSC will do? So this UPSC got the request from December 12, on December 12, 2020 and February 12, 2021, UPSC got the request from this Department of Personnel and Training. And later on UPSC launched, this online recruitment applications in month of February and March. So in month of February and March, it came up with this online recruitment applications. So based on the application forms they received, UPSC shortlisted about 231 candidates. So shortlisted 231 candidates for interviews, and they will go for interviews and finally they will select the candidates. So this is the process of this lateral entry scheme. And if you are talking about some facts regarding what is the meaning of this lateral entry, so what is the meaning? So if you are talking about the meaning, it means nothing but we are going for appointment process. So who will be appointed? So appointments will be given for specialists and as well as experts in so and so field. For example, if we want to deal with financial crisis, so we need the people who already excel in accountants, economy, right? So in this way, appointments mainly done, okay, appointments mainly done regarding taking specialists or some experts, especially from the private sector or even from the government organization and as well as ministries. So this mode of appointment is called as lateral entry. So what is the aim behind this lateral entry? So government mainly aims to recruit outstanding individuals who are having expertise in the fields like revenue, financial services, economic affairs, agriculture, cooperation, farmers welfare, road transport and as well as highway. So in all these areas, they will select the experts and as well as specialists. So whenever we are taking specialists into our administration, that will finally benefits the country as a whole. So now let us try to focus on what will be the advantages. So first one is we need specialized knowledge. If you see UPSC candidates, for example IAS or IPS, so they studied hard, right? Obviously they will be working very hard, and for people to clear this exam it will take 2 to 4 years of time, and some people they will clear in first attempt or second attempt, but in the most of the cases they will take 3, 4, 5, 6 even last attempts as well. So here we need some specialized skilled persons in our administration. For example, if you see UPSC people, they will not having a particular knowledge in only one subject. They will be having knowledge in all the subjects. So we need specialized knowledge persons. So if at all in so and so ministry or so and so department, if there is any requirement of specialized persons, so we can go for this lateral entry. And next one is filling the gap. According to Department of Personnel and Training, so there is shortage of about 1500 IAS officers. So in this way here, whenever we are going for this lateral entry, so this will mainly help to decrease this gap. And next one is bridging change in work culture. So it will also help in bringing change in bureaucratic culture, in government sector culture. So the bureaucratic culture which mainly criticized for red tapeism, rule book bureaucracy and as well as status quoist. So here, whenever we are going for this bureaucratic culture here, so it is mainly criticized by red tapeism and even rule book bureaucracy and as well as status quoist. So here we need to mainly focus on government sector culture. And next one is participatory governance. So governance is one of the important thing, because if any law or if any act which is made by government, if there is no proper implementation of those laws and acts, then what is necessary to implement those laws, right? So in this way, mainly it will be helpful in participatory governance. So this lateral entry mainly provides stakeholders from private sector and as well as some non-profit organizations and even from government sector. So in this way, this will mainly give some opportunity to participate in governance process. So experts, they now can participate in this governance process. So this is about advantages. And as a coin having two sides, so here we can also discuss about what are the disadvantages. So I discussed about advantages. Yes, we are not only having advantages but also even at disadvantages. First one is there is no transparency in recruitment process. We don't know how these people are shortlisted, everything. There is no exam, right? So because of this, we are not having any transparency in recruitment process. And next one is demotivation of existing officers. So these officers like IAS, IRS, IPS, etc. So they studied very hard and they finally cleared exam. But whenever through this lateral entry, people who are mainly entering easy into these services, then what happened? It mainly affect the already existing balance of officers. And next one is there is the difference in organizational values. So till now, people who worked in the private sector, they all worked mainly for profit. So profit motive, it is the only objective of this private sector. But in the government sector, we need to focus on the welfare of people. So because of this, there is obviously differences in organizational values. And next one is there is conflict of interest. So hiring of private sector into administrative positions, which mainly raises issues of potential conflict of interest between these people and as well as who already cleared the exam. So these are some disadvantages. So I hope this topic is very clear, especially for the beginners. And now let us try to see next topic. Title says prompt action proved IAF Indian Air Force Combat Readiness IAF Chief. So IAF Chief on this 89th Air Force Day, he mainly said that IAF Indian Air Force, it is very much ready to undergo any combat operations. So this is the thing which mainly said by our Indian Air Force Chief. So if you see context, it mainly says that the prompt actions in response to development in Eastern Ladakh, they were a testament to Indian Air Force combat readiness, the Chief of Army Staff. So the prompt actions mainly in response to the developments which are happening across this Eastern Ladakh, that means across this LAC region, what is happening along this LAC region, that is a military standoff. And also if you are going for different level of talks, also there is no proper solution or proper disengagement in this region. So because of this, in this context, on this 89th Air Force Day, here IAF chief said that they are very much ready for any combat operations. So if you see details, it mainly says that three units they were deployed on the front during the standoff with China last year. So with the China in last year, Air Force also had played an important role. And not only this, even in 2019, after this Pulwama attack, we went for this Balkot airstrikes. So here IAF also actively participated in this Balkot airstrike. Okay, and if you see further more information, those three units mainly includes fighter squadron, helicopter unit, and as well as surface to air missile squadron. So if you're talking about what is this Indian Air Force Day, so if you're talking about this Indian Air Force Day, so it is we are having fourth largest air force in the world. So first one is US, second one is China, and third one is Russia. So after that, India mainly stands at the place fourth. So here this day mainly celebrated to raise awareness around the world about this Indian Air Force, okay, as an organization, how much important role which is mainly played in strengthening of national security. So we are talking about what is the significance. So first and the foremost thing here is, among other armed forces, here Indian Air Force is a crucial organ. So this organ mainly plays an important role in the wars of the country. And we are having the fourth largest operational air force in the world. And if you're talking about what is the important mission, so this mission you need to know. So what is the important mission of this Air Force? That is to secure our Indian airspace, and as well as it will also conduct aerial activities during this armed conflict as well. So this is about this Indian Air Force and what is significance. And now let us move on to next topic. So title says Giloy is safe to use, says Ayush Ministry. So Ayush Ministry says that this Giloy which is safe to use. So this Giloy, it is one of the important herb, that is a medicinal herb which mainly used for wide variety of applications of this Giloy. And recently in social media there was some fake news which mainly spread regarding this Giloy, which is causing some harmness, etc. So this article mainly saying that yes, Giloy, it is safe to use. There is no need of fearing about this Giloy. So if you see context, it mainly says that Giloy or Guduchi. Giloy is also called as Guduchi. It is a herb which mainly used in Ayurveda, and it is a safe to use but similar looking plants in circulation such as Tinea spora crispa can be harmful according to Ministry of Ayush. So yes, if you see here Giloy or Guduchi, scientific name here is Tinospora cordifolia. So this Tinospora cordifolia, it is mainly very much helpful for our health. Okay, and here Ayush, Ministry of Ayush also said that there is no need of fearing while taking this Giloy, but you need to be very much careful whether it is Tinospora cordifolia or whether it is Tinospora crispa. So if you see this Tinospora crispa, it is somewhat harmful when we are comparing with this Tinospora cordifolia. So now let us try to see some important details. If you see details, it mainly says that Giloy, it is a climbing shrub. So it mainly go with climbing the other trees, and it is an essential herb which mainly used in our Ayurvedic medicines. So in Ayurvedic medicines, it is mainly and commonly used, and all of its parts like leaf, stem, roots, they are thought to have some essential health benefits as well. And next one is people, they have long used it to treat wide range of diseases, for example fever, infections, diarrhea, and even diabetes. Okay, so in this context, ministry mainly conducts some survey, and even ministry conducts some research which mainly said that this Giloy, which have hepatoprotective properties, so it is also having hepatoprotective properties. Hepa means nothing but our liver, so it mainly helps to protect our liver. So why the liver damage which mainly happens? So let me know some reasons regarding what are the reasons of this liver damage in humans. So not only this hepatoprotective property, but even it was also known for its immense therapeutic applications as well. So it is having a wide range of applications. So now let us try to see some important facts. So if you see scientific name, that is Tinospora cordifolia, and the common names that can be used in nearby areas or so and so areas includes Gurjo, Heart Loud, Monseed, Gudchi, and as well as Gilai. So these are some important other names of this Tinospora cordifolia. And this vine which mainly belongs to family, that is Spermaceae. So Spermaceae family it mainly belongs to, and it is mainly seen in tropical regions and as well as Indian continent as well. So if you see the leaves, they will be like this shape, that is heart shaped leaves are mainly seen here. Okay, and next one is, so here this Tinospora cordifolia, it is a traditional medicine. It mainly used to treat different disorders that can be used mainly to decrease the free radicals, okay, free radicals in our body, and as well as disease causing germs, etc. And even it is very much helpful for removing of toxins from the body. And here this Tinospora will also very much helpful even to purify our blood, and even it mainly helps to combat urinary tract infections, and it is also helpful mainly to improve our liver condition or liver health. So these are some important facts here. So here you can get a question like, so this Gujro is in news, that is we can say like, so this Giloy is in news whether it is safe or not. So what are the applications of this Giloy? So if you see this applications of this Giloy, which mainly used for removing of toxins, and it is very important for our blood as well, and it is also very much helpful for combating of urinary tract infections as well, and even it will be helpful for to treating of this liver disease. So these are some important facts that you need to remember regarding this topic. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says Supreme Court flags consequences of growing digital divide. So this article mainly focusing on digital divide. So what is the meaning of this digital divide? For example, let us take a kid. Okay, let us take a kid who is living in urban areas and he belongs to a rich family. And let us take another kid who is mainly living in rural areas whose parents are very poor. He belongs to a poor family. So due to this COVID-19, so schools both in urban areas and even in rural areas, they have been closed. So these schools in urban areas, they mainly shifted towards online learning and online teaching. So these rich parents, they will offer children with tablet or laptop or mobile phones, etc., such that this student will continue learning or education through this online mode. So what about the situation of this student who is mainly pursuing his education in rural areas? So in rural areas, especially government schools, they do not have proper infrastructure. They didn't went for, most of the cases, they didn't went for this online learning. because of there is no proper internet availability, there is no proper infrastructure in schools as well. And we studied number of reports. And even this poor family will not afford for getting a laptop or getting a tablet or getting a mobile phone for their children. So in this way, between these two children, now this kid will have proper education, but this person do not have. So this gap, it is called as a digital divide. So these are digital haves and these are digital have nots. So the gap between digital haves and digital have nots, it is called as a digital divide. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So if you see context, it mainly says that digital divide caused by online classes will defeat fundamental right. So we are having a fundamental right, that is right to education. So let me know in which article it is a fundamental right which mainly talks about right to education. Okay, and some details regarding this right to education under this fundamental right. So don't forget about your homework. And if you see some details, it mainly says that court ruled how the right to education now hinged on who could afford gadgets for online classes, who could not. So here court mainly talked that some people they will go for offering of online gadget, but some people will not go for offering of online gadgets. For example, proper internet connection and laptops or systems, or we can say like tablets or mobile phones. So the parents of children who are very poor, who cannot afford laptops or mobile phones, proper internet connectivity or tablets, etc., and these children, they will be out of this online learning. So whenever children who are dropping from their education, so there is also one threat which mainly posed, that is about these children will go for child labor or drug trafficking or children trafficking, that mainly seen. So this is the thing which mainly said by our Supreme Court. So the children who are especially belonging to these economically weaker sections of society, or children who are mainly belonging to these disadvantaged groups, they mainly suffer the consequences of not having to fully pursue their education, or worse, or still drop out because of lack of access to internet and as well as computers. So especially children who are belonging to this economically weaker sections of society and children who are belonging to some disadvantaged groups, they will not pursue education. So that will severely worse their future as well. And education is one of the weapon that can be used to come out of this poverty. But if there is no education, if children they are dropping out of from education, means further this family will go back into the poverty debt trap again. And next one is court was hearing to a petition which mainly filed by private school management, which mainly challenging Delhi High Court's order. So Delhi High Court came up with order in 2020, that is in September 2020 like. So here schools they need to provide 25% quota for this economically weaker sections of society. Okay, students with online facilities free of cost. So this here whenever schools are going for online education, especially 25% of reservation or quota that need to be given for this economically weaker sections of society. And here schools need to provide the free of cost of education, that is online facilities. Online facilities should be given free of cost. For example, we can say like laptops or tablets or mobile phones, etc. So High Court said that schools could get reimbursement from government. So whenever schools are providing this online gadgets, so here schools they will get reimbursement from government. But in turn Delhi government said that, so here there is no resources which are left with Delhi government to provide online gadgets for students through the schools. So because of this, these schools they filed application or filed a petition in Supreme Court, and Supreme Court mainly hearing this case. Okay, so this is just. And now let us try to see next topic. Journalists from Philippines, Russia win this Peace Nobel. So these are the two persons, they win this Nobel Peace Prize of 2021. So if you see context, it mainly says that, so journalist Maria Ressa of Philippines and Dmitry Muratov of Russia. Okay, one from Philippines and one from Russia. They won this 2021 Nobel Peace Prize because they are mainly fighting for freedom of expression. Freedom of expression in the countries where reporters, they are mainly facing persistent attacks and as well as harassment and even murder. So here what happened in number of cases in India also, we saw there are number of journalists, they lost their life and they were facing some torture, some attacks, right? So because of this, these two persons, they mainly fight for freedom of expression in the countries. So because of this, these two persons, they got this Nobel Peace Prize 2021. So if you see some details, so here Brett Ress Anderson mainly says that, so free, independent and fact-based journalism. So we need independent, free and as well as fact-based journalism. It mainly serves to protect the values of power, which mainly protects us from abuse of power, lies and wars and war propaganda against this political parties. So if there is any political party which is in news, so if there is any journalist who is writing against this political party which is in power, means then we can see this political party people, they may do some attacks on this journalist, and even sometimes the journalist will be killed and some false case will be filed and this journalist will be kept under the bars. So these are the evident, these are the some incidents which are mainly we can see here. So because of this, here Brett Ress Anderson mainly says that we need free, independent and as well as fact-based journalism. So here we can say this press, it is a fourth state, right? So here this press will be acting as a mediator between the people and as well as political parties, and this press will place an important role to let know the people about what are the policies of the government, what are the loopholes, everything will be known through this press. So if there is no independent and the free press, then people, how they can know about what is this ruling party which is doing and what are the abuses it is doing, so what are the good things it is doing. So we need to know that. So for that, free, independent and as well as fact-based journalism, it is very much important. And this one is, without this freedom of expression and freedom of press, it will be very difficult to successfully promote fraternity among the nation, that is brotherhood between the nations, disarmament, etc. So this is the thing which also said in this topic. And Miss Ressa, the first Filipino to win this Peace Prize and first woman to be honored this year with an award by the Nobel Committee. So these are some important facts. And now let us move on to next topic. It mainly says that infusing public health into Indian medical education. Okay, so we need to infuse this public health into our Indian medical education. So now let us try to see this topic. So before seeing this topic, I want to make a small announcement on this platform. If you want to clear UPSC 2022, we came up with one excellent, highly beneficial and as well as highly economical course, that is current affairs package along with mains answer writing practice. So how this course will be useful? So one thing you need to remember here is, before entering into examination hall, you need to know at least 1.5 years current affairs to clear this prelims and as well as mains. And here in this course, we are going to cover 1.5 years current affairs. And next one is mains answer writing practice. So even though if you are good and if you complete everything, if you are not focusing on this mains answer writing, means chance of clearing this UPSC will be very low. So because within this time limit, you need to write answer within so and so word limit. So because of this, answer writing practice is very, very important. And next important thing here is, if you join this course, we also conduct prelims test on every Sunday, and we also provide you video explanation part. So in this way, this course which is designed as per the demand of UPSC. So finally, I want to say one thing. Please don't take this course as a choice. Try to join this course as soon as possible and achieve your dream of clearing UPSC. Details of this course is given in description box. And if you want to talk to me personally, you can make a call to this number 807-476-5513. Okay. And now let's come back and let us see the central thing. And one more thing is, tomorrow is prelims 2021, right? So students who are appearing this prelims, so please be calm and please read the questions with a peace of mind, and try to think twice before you select the correct option. First one suggestion from my side is, please try to answer the question first you are confident and you are sure, and later on in second round you have to go for thinking of questions that you can attempt through this elimination method. Okay, so please don't be panic, and you have to read that statements with a very calmful mind. Then only you can understand how UPSC is playing with you. Okay, so even though answer is very simple, you have to read the question at least twice before you are going for selecting your option. Okay, from my side, all the best for the people who are going to attend this year prelims, and I hope good wishes for them, and I hope they will clear their prelims. And now let's come back and let us see this article. So central theme of this article says that a middle ground it is to upgrade community medicine to community medicine and public health in curriculum. In our curriculum, that is in our medicine, okay, in our medicine education, so we are having this, we are mainly focusing on only public health but not this community medicine. Now this article says that we need to include this community medicine also in our curriculum. So if you're talking about this public health, so due to this COVID-19 pandemic, country witnessed the menace of two waves, and we are mainly thinking that again third wave of this coronavirus may strike again. So while this COVID-19 pandemic had been presented a very overreaching public health calamity, so it mainly influenced the medical doctors in the health policy to response to this COVID-19 has been particularly different. So if you see till now how these medical doctors they attended the medical classes, and now in this COVID-19 period and to treat with this COVID-19 is a very much different. So COVID-19 mainly shows or entails the facts that it mainly leaves the libraries and academia and manifests that tangible policy measures that mainly helps to consolidate this public health in the country. So if you want to maintain the proper public health in the country, we need to come up with the policy measures. So this is the thing which we understand due to this COVID-19 pandemic. So if you go back to this 1950s, in 1950s India mainly used to have many dreadful diseases. So here at that time our government which came up with some global consensus, and as well as it came up with conconement of a national consensus, and here we mainly focused on socially oriented physicians, and we mainly established community medicine as a distinct medical specialty. We included this community medicine in both undergraduate and as well as even in our postgraduate levels. And if you're talking about this community medicine curriculum, which mainly devoted to tackle major public health challenges through plethora of vertical disease control programs. So at that time in 1950s, we came up with a number of disease control programs, for example, malaria, etc. So the larger medical curriculum has remained more or less stagnant since post-independence onwards. So in this way, we need to come up with reforms in our curriculum, and we need to include this community medicine in our curriculum. So if you're talking about multidisciplinary sciences, so some experts mainly advocated that the establishment of public health departments in medical schools, they are mainly inspired by this COVID-19 pandemic. So not only this, we need to focus on our community medicine now in this COVID-19 pandemic. So here author mainly cited example of Cuba and how they included this medical curriculum. So if you see countries like Cuba in their curriculum, in their medical curriculum, they added public health. Okay, so and also not only that, they also included about this community medicine. So why they focused on this community medicine? Because so this community medicine, it will be very important, and it will always defense exclusivity, okay, being fundamentally this medical specialty which is meant for only for doctors. For example, even though doctors they are present in so and so area and they will go for treating the patients, but not only doctors but also giving some first aid and to explain about how to use these medicines and to explain about what are these diseases and how to decrease this transmission of this disease. So even though here other diverse background students, they can be given some training and they can also involve in this. So this is nothing but this community medicine. So in this context, what is a way forward? So we need to come up with upgradation of community medicine in our education curriculum at both postgraduate level and even undergraduate levels. And here we should also focus on community medicine curriculum, and we need to go for incorporation, or we need to emphasize mainly on these areas like public health, etc. For example, we need to focus on social health, we need to focus on health policy and as well as health system. And finally, at the same time, the representation of experts rather than doctors from the fields they allied to public health will be very much essential. Okay, not only included in this community medicine, but even from the different fields regarding this public health will be very much essential. Okay, especially in the community medicine and as well as public health departments. So we need to have a proper representation of experts, not only including this community medicine in our curriculum. So here we need to ensure that there are proper experts are present. Okay, so this is about this topic. So by this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. And don't forget to enroll to this current affairs package. And the last date for this registration is 10th October. So by this we are concluding today. Thank you so much.